Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Alan, and we've probably met before in other videos. If not, welcome to the channel. This is going to be the first video in a video series dedicated to the new ham, for someone who's looking at getting into or has already just got their amateur radio license. So the first question I wanted to address was something that I've heard before, from a lot of my friends who aren't necessarily in the hobby. Why ham radio? What purpose does it serve? I mean, why do people spend as much money as they do? And by the way, you can spend as little or as lot of money as you want in ham radio. But why do people spend so much money on something that they perceive as being the old person's hobby? Well, that's, you've heard the expression, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Well, that's certainly true with amateur radio, because there is a facet of amateur radio for everybody. If you're the type of person who wants to keep it traditional and, you want to get on HF and talk to someone on the other side of the planet with Morse code on a straight key, more power to you. You're more than welcome to do it. On the flip side of that, if you want to homebrew your own transceiver, you want to build your own receiver and transmitter and do it, the deep dive into electronics and get on the air and talk to people, or build CW transceivers, you can do that too. If you want to use the latest and greatest software-defined radio technology to run the new hotness in digital modes, you can do that too. There's everything from your basic rag chewing on the air, and that's just talking to, having a leisurely conversation with other people. You can go anywhere from that to emergency communications, to contesting, to digital modes, to CW. Even television. Slow scan television, fast scan television, and now digital mode television is becoming a new thing now. And like I said, it's absolutely endless what you can do in amateur radio. And really, it comes down to, what makes you happy? What are you looking to get out of it? Are you wanting to learn a new skill like CW? Are you wanting to learn more about electronics? Do you already know a lot about electronics, and you want to break into like the RF world? In my professional life, I deal a lot with RF, and RF is an amazing thing to work with. Sometimes it can be not so intuitive. A lot of double E's will refer to RF as black magic, or the dark arts of electronics, and yeah, it can be in some cases, but it's like anything else. It just takes time to learn, right? And like I said, it really comes down to, what do you want to get out of it? What do you want to do? And it doesn't matter what that is, because ham radio can accommodate you. For me, when I first got into ham radio, and this was going on 8 years ago, I think now. For me, at the time, it was a mixture of electronics and SKYWARN, because given the area that I live in, we're right at the northern tip of what's considered Tornado Alley. We don't get as many tornadoes as, say, like the heart of the Midwest, the real heart of Tornado Alley, but we do get our fair share, and because of the infrequency of it, it's all the more important for us to have people on the ground spotting these tornadoes and feeding that information back to the National Weather Service, right? Because the vast population up here really isn't used to dealing with tornadoes on a regular basis, like you might experience in Tornado Alley. I'll go ahead and I'll switch my screen here. So SKYWARN was the organization I was a member of, and still am, as a matter of fact. It's a fantastic group. You work directly with the National Weather Service, and they offer training programs that you can take. It's always free training. In our area, it's put on by the head meteorologist from the National Weather Service office here in town, and he's absolutely one of the best instructors I've ever come across. He is extremely passionate about weather, and it makes it an absolute joy to listen to his training programs. But like I said, for me, it was getting into SKYWARN, trying to contribute, give back to the community a little bit. I live in a smaller town here, and I kind of I kind of combined this with being on our volunteer fire department. It kind of affords me certain, I don't know, avenues that you wouldn't necessarily have open to your average amateur radio operator. For instance, I had direct access to the tornado siren, so I could turn that tornado siren on. Like I said, it's a small town. Someone's got to go flip the switch and turn the thing on, right? And in converse, someone's got to go flip the switch and turn it off too. So that can be interesting when things are heating up, shall we say? And it's not just for weather, right? There's things like races and ARRLs, and I'll put links down in the description for these three things I've listed here. But they're also fantastic organizations. I believe ARRLs is part of the ARRL, and that's one thing you might want to look into when you're becoming a new ham, is joining the ARRL. That can be kind of a double-edged sword, and that's a topic for a later discussion. I mean, the ARRL are great. You definitely get into different classes of people, not really classes, different groups, I guess, with different priorities, right? And amateur radio operators can be very passionate about what we do, and one thing you'll notice is, if you decide to join a club or something like that, these, like I said, are very passionate, and sometimes it can be easy to step on feelings and things like that. Okay. But that's, like I said, that's a topic for another day. But the ARRL is an amazing, amazing group. If you're not familiar with the ARRL, it stands for the Amateur Radio Relay League. And this is an organization that effectively works with the FCC and helps ensure that we have the spectrum, the RF spectrum, available to us to use, right? If it weren't for the ARRL, not only would we probably not be getting any new bands, but we would probably be losing bands as a result. So it's really a good thing to have an organization like the ARRL. I personally was a member of the ARRL. I'm not anymore. And for various reasons, like I said, that's a topic for another discussion. But back to the main point, right? Why ham radio? Why not FRS? Why not GMRS? Why not CB? You can go anywhere and buy a CB. You can go to a truck stop. You can buy a CB for less than $10 on Amazon. So why would you want to get into amateur radio and go through the effort and the expense to get licensed, and then have to spend more money on top of it to buy a HF transceiver, unless you want to build your own? That's always possible. Why would you want to do that? Well, for me, it's not only as a point of pride, and I like to think it's the more professional way to do it, right? I know amateur's in the name, right? But FRS is great. You're limited on on repeater usage and stuff like that. And I can't think of an FRS repeater that's within 200 miles of my location. You might find them in bigger cities, I guess, but I'm not exactly certain how the FRS repeater system works. But I do know they're super basic. GMRS, well, okay, so FRS does not require a license. You can go to Target and buy FRS radios, or any big box store. And I guess technically it's the same for GMRS radios. You can go buy those anywhere too. Technically, to use GMRS, you do need a license. If you read the back of that blister package that these radios come in, it should tell you probably down in the fine print down at the bottom. You're supposed to apply for a FCC license, and you can get a family license that covers your whole family. That's fantastic. I don't have a GMRS license. I've never used the GMRS radio service. I've always just used either commercial grade business band radios or amateur radio. But why ham radio? Like I said, to me, it's the more professional option out of the ones I just listed, apart from probably business band. But the big holdback for business band is it's not super inclusive, right? So you're limited to a very narrow area with a business band license. You're given your frequency you can operate in, and that's it. With amateur radio, you've got a whole wide spectrum, depending on your class of license and what you're going for. So that affords you a lot of flexibility there. Plus, you can use a lot more power. You can go all the way up to 1,500 watts in some cases. A lot of cases, actually. There's some debate as whether or not you really need 1,500 watts. Yeah, maybe sometimes. But for the most part, probably not. My FT1000 here is a 200 watt radio, and I've rarely ever gone much over 150, for really difficult stations to get to. And that has to do with, like out transmitting your antenna, right? You're transmitting further than what you can hear with your antenna. And that's just using a basic, for me, a basic homebrewed fan dipole. So that's something you got to consider. And we'll get into that in later videos, antenna choices and how much power do you need to run and things like that. But back to the main topic here, why ham radio? For me, it was the sense of accomplishment that I went through the effort. I got the license. I had the document that says, from the FCC, that says I am legally allowed to operate on these bands. And, like I said, it's, I don't know, out of the given options, it's the more professional and the most flexible way to go. You may have other reasons, and that's entirely fine. I mean, you can use whatever reason you want. I just want people to really, I want to drive this point home. Amateur radio can be whatever you want it to be for you. There's no right way and there's no wrong way to make amateur radio fit your needs. You can operate handheld. You can operate mobile in your vehicle. You can operate mobile on a bicycle. You can operate mobile on a lawnmower. You can have your base station. You can go portable on, you can, summits on the air. You can take a portable radio and go, climb up to a mountaintop and operate there. Parks on the air, people that go to parks all over the country and activate the park and make a bunch of contacts from the park. Like I said, it's endless. And then, once you get into electronics, building your own kits, making your own kits, it's absolutely endless, basically, is what I'm trying to say here. And, while I'm sure you've noticed by now, I'm not super articulate in conveying what the point I'm trying to make here. But amateur radio can be whatever you want it to be. The cost of admission is low, right? I mean, it's really low. What do you, $14, $15 to get your license? And then as far as the equipment you need to get on the air, I mean, you can spend as much or as little as you want. My very first radio, which I still have, by the way, sitting over here on the shelf next to me, and I'll pull it out in a later video because these radios tend to spark a lot of controversy. But it was the Bofang, or however you want to pronounce it. I'm sure there'll be the keyboard warrior that'll want to correct me on the correct pronunciation, but whatever. For instance, when I say solder, I pronounce solder. I pronounce the L because it's there, right? Uh, yeah, whole other subject. Anyway, my first radio was a Bofang. It was like $15, but it got me on the air. And getting on the air and talking to somebody new is absolutely an amazing feeling. And once you do that, once you meet someone new especially on HF band, right? The first time you've talked to someone outside of the U.S. is absolutely amazing. The first time you talk to someone out on an island is amazing. I can recall the first time I contacted a fellow ham who's now become a friend of mine in New Zealand. I mean, how cool is that, right? Sure, you can pick up a cell phone and call somebody in New Zealand, right? But to me, that's kind of not as fun. I mean, getting on HF and calling CQ to me is kind of like fishing, right? You never know what's going to come back or who's going to come back. And, give it enough time, sure, you're going to run into the regulars. Excuse me. But every night, there hasn't been a single time I've got on the radio and not run into somebody new. And it's just an absolute joy to talk to somebody new and hear about their experiences and share their experiences with what that got them in the ham radio. What are their interests? What are they working on? What's on their bench? What are they building? What are they, whatever they're into, it's awesome, right? And for me, the other aspect for me is I turned ham radio into into a bit of a business. I work on commercial radios now. I've always had an electronics background. I got an amateur radio and started learning about RF. And those of you, for those people who think that you can't learn enough in amateur radio to do something to do any good in a professional setting, you're dead wrong. Everything I learned about RF, I learned from ham radio. Books like Gordon West's extra class book. The ARRL has hundreds of books on the subject. Hold on, I'll grab it here. All right. Sorry about that. I should have had this primed, but I didn't think I was going to go here. This book right here, Experimental Methods in RF Design by the ARRL. That is the definitive text, as far as I'm concerned, on RF. There's so many cool things in that book that you can build. It's just mind-blowing. So I don't want to keep rambling for too long. I think I've made my point in one form or the other. Like I said, I'm probably not that articulate, and hopefully I haven't lost you. If you're still here, congratulations. You really do deserve a medal. But I just want to say one final time that ham radio is whatever you want it to be, right? Don't think you have to have a plan in mind or a reason in mind to get into ham radio. You don't. Just go get your ticket. I'm serious. You will not regret it. Just go get it. It's $14 or $15, right? And a little bit of effort to learn the material. How many of us have spent more than $20 on something considerably less useful than amateur radio will be, believe me. So just don't even think about it. Just do it. All right. Even if you end up doing nothing with it, it's still something neat to have under your belt. But I firmly believe once you get your ticket and get on the air and make your first contact, you're going to be hooked, right? And it's going to be a life-altering experience for you, and you're going to love it, all right? So with that, I hope you're having a fantastic day. If you're not, I hope your day gets a little bit brighter. Remember, be kind to everyone. Everybody is fighting a battle that you don't know anything about. So keep that in mind. All right. 73 friends. Later.